Here we are during Christmas time, and it's the feast of the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. During Christmas time, we pay extra attention to the lives of these three people together. Now, in the Gospel, it recounts how Mary and Joseph took baby Jesus to the temple 40 days after he was born for the ritual purification. And I'd really just like to focus on the very end of that passage is Luke chapter 2, verse 39. It says, "They returned to Galilee, to their own town of Nazareth." That's it. They simply went home. After all the events associated with the birth of Jesus, starting with the annunciation of the angel Gabriel to Mary, the adoration of the shepherds, the prophecies that we heard about in today's gospel from Simeon and Anna, they just went home and lived their lives, just like we live our lives. And can you imagine what their life together was like? You know, here we have the Son of God, the second person of the Trinity as the child. We have Mary, the greatest saint, conceived without sin. And we have Saint Joseph, who I guess we've come to call the second greatest saint because he's invoked now, if you notice, in the Eucharistic prayer right after Mary. You know, what harmony they had. We can be pretty sure that there was no bickering, right? But there was misunderstanding, which is part of every family life. We know that there was misunderstanding because we'll hear in a short time about the boy Jesus remaining behind in the temple, assuming that his mother and father knew he was going to be there. So, but the church holds out the Holy Family as an example for us. You know, when we feel hurt by family members, or impatient, or even angry, we can try to set Jesus, Mary, and Joseph as an example for us and try not to answer back in anger, right? Because a lot of the conflict that happens is simply misunderstanding, just like the misunderstanding of the boy Jesus in the temple. If we can try to remember that, we can maybe hold our urge to strike back and just accept the other people in our family as we want them to accept us. You know, the family is the basic unit of civilization. A husband, wife, and children, if God grants children, and maybe elderly people living with them. It's also called the domestic church because that's where children first learn about God and where we live out our faith. And it's no secret that this basic family unit is under attack, right? Anything that undermines the family is a problem. Adultery, divorce, living together, people in same-sex relationships living together, and even now, people who are claiming that they can't define what is a man or a woman. Now, the latest document from the church, Fiducia Supplicans, has caused a lot of debate because it falls within the realm of people who are not living in a traditional marriage. If you haven't heard, it allows priests to bless same-sex couples and, by the way, other couples in what it calls irregular relationships, whatever that means. So I've read it, and I've read a number of analyses of it. The document does restate the official church teaching that marriage is only between a man and a woman. So what's the problem? Well, one reason you may have heard of it is all the confusion that it's caused, right? 1 Corinthians 14:37 says, God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. So there's been a lot of trouble that's stirred up by this document, whether it's from the document itself or from other influences taking it as an excuse because it was released during this Christmas season, which is supposed to be a special time of peace. As for the document itself, if it affirms official church teaching, what's the controversy? But then again, how could it bless same-sex couples? Well, it does this by, and this is what it says, broadening the definition of a blessing and being, again, its words, innovative about what constitutes a blessing. It does this by making some new distinctions. One distinction that I'll briefly mention is that it makes a difference between what we would call a liturgical blessing in the context of a church ceremony and a pastoral blessing outside the church. There's been a lot of discussion about that. But what I'll focus on is that the other distinction it makes, which is it separates same-sex couples from their union. The church had already issued a document just 2 years ago saying it can't bless the union. But now it's saying you can bless the couple because somehow the couple is separate from the union. And that's caused a lot of discussion. Because the reason that they're a couple is because they're in a union which has to be called sinful. So how do you separate that? Well, the document takes pains to say that the blessing cannot take place within the context of a civil ceremony or something that's supposed to be a marriage ceremony that would lend it to that would lend the blessing to imply blessing their non-approved lifestyle. The document expects that people who are asking for this blessing are seeking to live better. So the priest is supposed to exercise discernment in deciding if the people who are asking the blessing are asking to live better or if they're looking for an endorsement of their lifestyle. Of course, the priest can't fully know how the couple will receive it. So that's the risk. Maybe it's not a reason to withhold the blessing, but it is a risk. Because to endorse sin is itself a sin. Now, with that said, as I've really meditated on this, I thought about a friend that my wife had, and she had a friend who was gay. And he would say, she talked to him a little bit about God, and he said, well, I'm just going to go to hell. I have no, I'm completely written off. Now, the church has never said that. It has always separated the person himself from acting out on a sinful tendency, right? Acting out versus the person. But, the reality is that's how this person felt. So it occurred to me that if this new blessing can somehow get a message to people like that, hey, you're not completely written off. Give us a look. Because as the document points out, and as we all know, God loves us. He loves everyone. Now, he wants us to turn away from sin, to be with him. But the first step probably is realizing that God loves us. And if this document does that, maybe that's a good thing. And if it makes people think that the way they're living is good when it's not, that's a bad thing. But either way, the door has been opened. So we'll see. So on this Feast of the Holy Family, let's look to them to help us in our own family life and in our broader family life of God, the church.